Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Real Estate Marketing Show with ruthierocks, Ruth Allbrand, and I am Marketing Max. Today, we is show number 758, and we have a returning guest, a timely guest at this moment in time, given how interest rates are going to be moving very rapidly this year. We have Sheila Merill with Nova Home Loans. She's often referred to as the lending lady. And she's going to talk about and update us on what's happening in the mortgage world. But before we get to Sheila, Ruth, what is happening in real estate?
Well, good morning, everybody. It's Ruthie Rocks, another day in paradise. I'm going to hide my guests while I tell you what is going on here. Sheila, let's see what happened to you. We always have so much fun here. Okay, it is, and I got a nice cup of coffee from John. Thank you so much. We have 22 days of inventory, which means we are just selling the heck out of Las Vegas. We are selling 113 homes a day. Now, that's resale homes. Last month, we sold almost 1,000 new homes. So if you think there's no inventory, look again. There is inventory. It is just moving off the shelf just faster than toilet paper was during the pandemic. The median price is holding around $436. It did spike up a little bit at the beginning of the month, but it's back down to $436. And of course, we'll find out the February numbers next week. We have 37 homes that were just listed in the median price range and below. And we have a total of 466 homes that are 436,000 and below. So lots of inventory out there. People listed 143 homes yesterday, which we love. We closed 137 and we put 103 under contract. So even though it says 22 days, it's only because they're not staying on the market long. And I think the real estate community is just getting smarter and brighter, and they're becoming wizards at this because they're bringing offers to the table where it's subject only to appraisal. So the buyer has been approved, everything's fine, except we're waiting on the appraisal. The appraisals now are coming in faster. So it's becoming a really wonderful market for everybody. It's been frustrating last year with the multiple offer situation and different things, but things are, I think the secret sauce is the agents are really understanding how to navigate this market. And what is, I talked a little bit this week about what's really pushing our market. And if you look at this, let me put this down. Our population, we have people coming from California, people from Florida, Washington, Texas, and Arizona. Those are the top 5. And if you just briefly I want to tell you why they're coming here. And it's because we have jobs. We have a lot of jobs. Whoops, let me hide that one. This is always so much fun. Our gaming had topped $1 billion for the 11th straight month last month. I mean, it's just amazing. People continue to come here. Our visitors are coming here. They're spending $360, not including, just on gaming, not including food and lodging. So many things going on in our city. See, I wanted to show you all one more thing here. We have a fantastic pipeline of development. $12.2 billion in tourism projects, $6.5 billion in non-tourism projects, and $3.1 billion in transportation projects. So this town is just moving in all directions. So under construction, 9.9, planned projects, 11.9. These are $1 billion worth of things that are going on. And that's why people are moving here. The Fontainebleau should close in 2023. That is a $3.1 billion project. You've got the Sphere. That's a $1.8 billion project, and that's going to close in 2023. And then you have some industrial projects like this one, and $327 million, just all over the city. These are the things that are happening, and that's why people are moving here. We have jobs. I believe The casino jobs right now, they're looking for 3,200 people. So, so we've got jobs, we've got activity, we've got sunshine. We don't have hurricanes, tornadoes. We don't have any of those things. So that all brings Las Vegas into the forefront when people want to know where they want to move to. Another really interesting thing is I want to show you today one of my favorite $1 million homes. So we're going to put this in and we're going to watch this. Maybe. Come on, go. So you might think that this beautiful home is located in Bel Air, but it isn't. It's located right in Country Club Hills, right here in Las Vegas. And there's nothing like this in the world. It's absolutely fabulous. It is the Wynn estate. So Steve Wynn is selling his home for $24.5 million, and it's absolutely timeless. He's rebuilt it it's got 6 bedrooms, 15,000 square feet, 11 bathrooms. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to clean those. And 2 private offices, a screening room, an art room, a 4-car garage, and then of course all the beautiful gardens. So I just wanted to let everybody know that if you want to buy this $24,500,000 home, I'm a real estate agent and I would love to sell it to you. I think a 2% commission. I think I could take a day off this year. Yeah. Let's bring everybody else back here. That is stunning.
That is.
What side of town is that on?
It's right here in Summerlin.
Is it Summerlin? Okay.
It's in Country Club Hills, TBC.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It is, and 15,000 square feet, unbelievable. And he remodeled it. I mean, he did a fantastic job. It's meticulous, just like he builds the casinos, all the attention to detail. Yeah. So that's my big deal of the week. $1 billion in gaming revenues, 11 straight months in a row. Over $20 billion in projects underway, and a $24,500,000 home for sale.
Right. Yeah, the state of Nevada, and specifically here, Southern Nevada, is doing very well right now. Coming out of the situation around the world that happened to us in this world. So, but a lot of changing events this year, right, Sheila? I'm glad you're on because I'm very curious on your update and take on the potential for maybe what they call a possible slowdown in real estate because rates are going up. But before we dive into all of that, Sheila, I want you to give us just a little bit of background about yourself here, just for people who've never seen you on the show.
Okay. Who I am? I am a business person. I'm a businesswoman. Been doing in the finance world, residential finance world, for almost 20 years. I take a common sense approach to figuring out short and long-term goals for my clients. So we talk to them about what their plans are for the property that they're interested in. We can help them with their credit to get the better rate or to just qualify for the program. And we have lots of specials, lots of different programs for basically everybody.
Oh, fantastic. And how long you been in the lending world, Sheila?
Almost 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
So you've seen everything.
You started when you were 10 years old, right?
All right.
Yeah.
So give us an update. So what's happening, right? I mean, obviously rates, I just saw 30-year mortgages top 4% over this past week here. What's that done to kind of the volume? Have you seen, what's the trends you're seeing right now?
Well, everything is back to basics. It's risk and reward. So the better the credit score, the lower the debt to income ratio, and the more down payment, the better rate they're going to get. So you can still get rates in the mid threes with high credit scores and 20% down. Or government loans are definitely still in the 3% range. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a main, the Feds announced that they're going to raise the rates at least 3 times this year. A couple of other sources are saying that up to 7 times. Those are a couple of the big banks here in town or nationwide. So it really kind of depends. The geopolitical realm that we're in right now is playing a role in it too. The stock market, the bond market. When bonds do well, rates stay stable. They kind of go in hand with the bond market, but they go opposite of what the stock market does. So it's just what, and then inflationary pressures and all that. So.
And are you seeing with the in the recent application over a couple of months with the rates rising? I mean, just debt to income ratios, not qualifying at all, or how is that looking from a trend perspective as well, applications wise?
Application wise, what I'm seeing is not so much the debt to income ratio because it's mainly the credit score. It's the credit score because it's back to basics, the higher credit scores are needed. So meaning like 680 and above for the government loans to get a good rate. Used to be years ago for government loans, it didn't matter if you had a 600, 620 credit score, everybody, or 800 score, everybody would get the same rate. Not anymore. For the past several years, it's the better the middle credit score, the lower the interest rate.
Okay. And when you say government loans, you're talking about like FHA?
FHA and VA.
And VA. Okay.
And USDA.
Yeah. I remember there was a penalty though, if your score was under 600 at one point though, right? I mean, they charge you something, right? I remember the rate being the same for all loans, but wasn't there like some type of hit to either not the down payment, but like a charge on a fee of some sort if your credit score was under like 600 or 620?
Well, a couple of things. The lower the score, the lower the debt to income ratio that they'll allow you to go. So say a normal FHA, say the debt to income ratio would normally go up to 56% of the person's income. Well, with the lower score, you're limited to in the 30% range, depending on what the score is. That's really the hit to it. So
got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, I mean, what are you hearing from your real estate agent partners from on the field and what they're seeing in home prices and just talking among each other what they're anticipating this year?
Yeah. Well, exactly what Ruthie was just talking about. It's there is inventory, but it's going multiple offers over list price. For example, when I get a contract in, a lot of them are including. Say they offer $500,000. Well, buyer will agrees to pay up to $15,000 above appraised value. I'm seeing a lot of that happen right now.
Okay, that is interesting. Well, and that's a good real estate agent and a good lending person actually would advise their client to do that if they so just to set expectations, because what if the appraisal doesn't come in? I mean, that's another thing, dude. I mean, I don't know how, Ruth, you can answer this too. How are appraisals coming in right now? I know you're saying they come in faster, but what are the values looking like at this point? Ruth, we can't hear you.
Myself for a minute. Yeah, there's not a lot of issues with that. One of the things that we advise the agents, if you're going to put any verbiage in the contract other than what's there, you're not an attorney, and the real estate division advises you to let the appraisal contingency stand on its own, which means if it doesn't appraise, it goes back to the negotiating table with the buyer and the seller. That's the right way to do it. However, we see agents saying if it's above appraisal, if it's above the sales price by this much, then they'll pay that price. Where people get in trouble is when they say we'll pay $10,000 above appraisal, but then it doesn't come in at the appraised price that the offer was. So there's some moving parts there, but people are getting smarter every day on how to do it, and I keep telling agents almost every day on my show, let the appraisal contingency stand on its own, use less days on the appraisal contingency and less days on the loan contingency, come in with an offer subject only to appraisal.
Got it. Well, that makes sense.
Ruthie, I have a question for you. I'm seeing this. I've heard some agents saying that they're submitting offers saying, we'll pay, like if it's a multiple offer situation, we'll pay up to $2,000 above the highest offer. Is that legal?
Well, that's called the acceleration clause.
Okay.
And it's a broker issue. The division has put out a guideline that they do not think it is fair housing. They say it's not fair housing. It's unfair competition. So they've not made it a law yet, though. So it's a broker issue. If your broker allows you to do it and the selling agent will accept it, then there's no issue yet.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. From my perspective, for active loans that I have, I've only had a couple, probably 1 out of 10, that there is an appraisal issue where it's down just a little bit from what, but the agent knew up front they were offering more than what the comp showed to get the property, to get the house for the client. So,
Got it.
But most of them right now are coming in at value. That's what I'm seeing.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's good. I mean, so I know you have a little bit of a presentation for us today with some slides here. Sheila, do you want to get to that? Ruth, you want to put that
Sure,
up?
yeah. Ruth, do you want to bring that on?
All right. So we're going to do a little bit of logistics here. I'm going to hide us. I'm going to, now you're not going to be able to hear me when I hide you, so bear with me. Just tell me if it's not working for you, okay?
Okay, I can see it. Okay, basically what this is a presentation that Barry Habib, he is a nationwide entrepreneur. He's very well known. He's a marketing, he follows the markets. He is a real estate expert. He used to be an originator. He is a mortgage expert. And he's followed the markets for many years, for I believe over 20 years. His forecasts tend to be pretty spot on. So what you see in front of you is the forecast for 2022, basically doing a recap of the past. So forecast, of course, was the interest rates are expected to rise at least 3 times this year, starting next week in March. Housing, still a strong demand. Everything's based off supply and demand. Builders need to ramp up a little bit because so many people want houses, so they're behind in their building. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, the 2022 dynamics. Again, the feds are going to play a major role. They're tapering. They're going to taper the bond purchasing. Whenever the feds purchase bonds, they stabilize the interest rate market. So the more bonds they purchase, what I mean by that is they're purchasing long-term bonds, 10, 20, 30-year bonds, and they're putting money into the market by their purchases, and that helps keep the interest rates lower. So some of the Fed voting members, they rotate each year. That can have an effect with rates also. And what Barry has said, and what's shown for what we're going through right now, is they should have hiked the rates a little bit sooner, starting last year. Right now they thought, or last year they thought, and early this year they thought that inflation was transitory, but it's not. They're finding out it's here to stay and it's rising. So here's a little bit about history in the next slide. So Barry goes over and he is given as a history lesson, and we should learn from past market issues and what caused rates to rise and so on. But sometimes we don't, and history repeats itself. So Arthur Burns, back in the 70s, he was the Fed chair. So he ignored inflation. And we remember what happened back in the 70s. Everything ballooned from 7% in 78 to 14% by the time he left office. So he remained steadfast even when it rose twice the amount that it started, that it was still transient. Well, really wasn't. So in higher inflation, it went from 12% to 18%. Then comes Paul Volcker in the 80s. And the hikes federal funds rate from 11% to 20% in 2 years. We all remember the 80s, right? Inflation dropped from 14% to below 5%. So that's why they raised the Fed interest rate, the funds rate, to stabilize inflation, to lower it. So, but there were consequences. The market, remember what happened to the market? The market declined sharply in the 80s. It was tighter monetary push, and the U.S. went into a recession in 1982. And then we get to the 90s. So Alan Greenspan, he was the Fed chair in the 90s, and inflation doubled from 1 3/4 to 3.5. It caused the mortgage rates, remember in the 90s, went to over 8%. Unlike Burns, Greenspan, he took action in the mid to late 90s, and the Feds raised the fund rate to 1 3/4, matching the rise in inflation. So that helped, and inflation responded and dropped from 3.5% to 1%. So that was a good thing. Mortgage rates then dropped also from 8.5% to 5.5%. But again, there are consequences. So whenever the Feds work on lowering the rates or getting inflation under control, the one or the other is affected. So in this case, the stock market is affected. You see that? So it fell from 50%, and we entered into a recession in early 2000. Now, today, jumping forward under Jerome Powell, 2021 inflation increased from 1.75 to 7%. And Powell still thought it was transitory. That was mid to late last year. It caused the interest rates. We are seeing some of the lowest interest rates in history at the low twos, and even for 15 years in the mid to high 1% range, from 2.5 for 30-year fixed to 3.375, and rising, still rising right now. So they're tapering their purchase of bonds, long-term bonds and treasuries. And when they're done tapering in March, like I said earlier, we're going to expect to see more interest rates rise. So March is supposed to be the trigger date. However, personally, we've seen it starting to rise right now. So rates are already rising. Inflation and interest rates can still rise under the Fed Act. If they tame inflation, well, mortgage rates should drop. There is a little scuttle on the market from Barry Habib that maybe we'll see some relaxation later on this year in the rates. So like right now, till probably October, November, we're going to see things head up, but we might get some relief later on. So here's a recap. So see this pattern right here. Look at the inflation through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then current. Inflation 7 to 14% at the top. And then right now we went from last year 1 3/4 to 7%. And mortgage rates back in the 70s and 80s, 12 to 18%, to today, 2.5 to 3 3/4. So people's, rates are still awesome. Rates are still historically low. It's still a great time to buy. The Fed funds rate, 11 back in the 70s and 80s, 11% to 20%, and today we're at 0. So 0 to 1% in 2022. Inflation response back in the 70s and 80s, 14% to 5%. That's what they got it down to, and it should drop currently. So that's why the Feds make these moves. Mortgage rate response back in the 70s and 80s, you're looking at 18 to 12%, and should decline as inflation declines. So as they get this under control, the inflationary response is going to drop the interest rates lower later this year, is what I mentioned earlier. So we look for that. So it's still a good time to purchase, even if the rate is a little higher right now. Don't buy it down. Don't pay points to buy the rate down. So say your rate is 4% and you want to buy it down to 3.875 or 4.5 with no cost, no points to buy it down. Take it as it is, and let's look at refinancing later on when inflation is a little more under control. So, and then consequences to everything in the stock market. So stocks are expensive right now and the economy is slowing. Are we heading to repeat history from the 70s and 80s and the 90s? Look at stock market was hit. We've seen a few up and downs earlier this year with the stock market, but it has rebounded. So just keep an eye on that. So the wild cards. Next page. So COVID played a major influence on the monetary policy and supply chains. There weren't as many people available. Shops, supply houses were shut down. So additional stimulus may fan the flames of inflation. So it could push stock prices temporarily higher, cause mortgage rates to increase a little bit more. And then going down to the runoff, the Fed's balance sheet, first they have to stop purchasing new mortgage bonds and treasuries. And then the rates, that's why they raise the rates to calm inflation. They raise the rates because they want to slow the economy purchasing. It stops businesses from purchasing and us buying cars and, that kind of thing. That's how they slow inflation. So, but right now they're still buying about $70 billion a month in mortgage bonds through reinvestments. What happens with the mortgage bonds, they'll buy bonds and they wait, and then they also sell them off. So when they come due, say a 10, 20, 30-year bond, when it comes due, then they put the money back in the market by buying new bonds. It's just reinvesting in it. So next page, stock market forecast. So right now we're looking at stock market prices. His take on it is there's a lot of stocks that are extremely overvalued right now. So keep an eye on everything. It still makes sense. You get a lot of people that go in and out of the market, talk to your financial advisor, and it's basically based off of your tolerance, your risk tolerance on what you should do. But rates hike could cause the PE multiple contraction, resulting in lower stock prices as seen in the past. So we just kind of have to watch and see what happens. But the forecast is about 10% decline in the major indices in 2022. So again, the interest rate forecast during the first part of the year towards 3.75. We're already there. So we're there. With the Fed actions, softer stock market, and slower economic conditions, rates should lower the second part of the year. So I would say, that's October again, September, October again, get near towards the 3% range. But remember, there's a lot of factors that can affect the rates, global economic conditions that are happening right now. The Fed's buying bonds again, inflation, if it starts cooling. So strategically, this sets us up for a bias of less upfront fees because of refinance opportunities ahead. So like I was mentioning, don't buy down your rate. Take the rate at whatever without any cost right now, and look at refinancing in the future. So the housing forecast, just like Ruthie was saying, expected to remain strong in 22, but not as strong as 2021. And remember why builders are starting to pick up, but there are chip shortages and a few other things, materials that they can't get. Garage doors, as Ruthie knows. She can share about that. So Supply will increase, but remain tight. Tight labor supply chain disruptions, like I just mentioned, semiconductor shortages, rents. We're seeing rents go up. They're remaining above 5%, pushing many people to see the benefit in buying. So if anybody out there is thinking of renting, why are you continuing to pay somebody else's mortgage? Start investing in yourself. Put that $5,000 to $10,000, whatever that you have to put down on that house. It's basically the first, last, and a security deposit, pet deposits, and cleaning deposits. You could be purchasing your own home. It really makes sense to start looking into your own future right now versus renting. So the forecast, mid to high single digit appreciation, still providing a great wealth creation opportunity. So it really makes sense to purchase right now.
We're going to join you. We're coming.
Okay.
Oh, we got switched.
Yeah, that's a lot of information.
A lot of information.
I what I garnered from that all those statistics is that I feel like the Fed just needs to leave everything alone. Let inflation run its course. Here's what I propose. Right, here's at one point or another. Hopefully, I don't think it will ever happen because it's a very political role that the Federal Reserve plays. But they should stop printing money. That should be the first step, and then allow people just to buy up what they need to buy, the government to buy up what they need to buy, and have them run out of money. And naturally, spending will stop and demand will stop, right? But
exactly,
if they lower or raise rates and then print another $3 trillion, that's not going to do anything to inflation because they've just subsidized the interest rate hikes with extra liquidity, and that's
right.
Unfortunately
reducing the interest rates with extra purchasing the bonds. The interest rates tend to go down. So you're right. It's like, think of how we manage our own business.
Right.
If we overspend, well,
we stop spending.
Yeah, stop spending. It's like, it's just common sense, but sometimes maybe we should run for office.
Yeah, no, there's actually a lady, her name, I forget, I think her name was Danielle DiMartino. She's on the David Patrick show. He's Valuetainment on YouTube. And she used to work for the Dallas Fed. And she was in there, and she was one of the first PhD economists that were accepted into the Fed, actually under Volcker, I believe, during his time in the early 80s. And she said that, there's a lot of academia in there that run, theoretical models that none of them have ever ran a business, right? None of them have actually balanced a budget. Right. And all they're doing is, theoretical models out there. And she's like, the system is completely broken. And what they need to do is stop printing money, right? Mm-hmm. The only way to solve this, unfortunately, it'll be much more painful because at one point, people realize they just can't spend. Government entities can't just spend without any recourse here. But that will naturally go through the cycle because, as you can see, every time the Fed intervenes, eventually recession will happen because they'll tighten the money supply so much. As long as they don't print more money, then a recession actually comes about.
So I have to ask you a question, Max, because you're such a master at this. I just put the appreciation equity for medium priced homes there. I don't think ever in history, in a decade, has home equity increased at the rate and amount that it has the past 10 years. And this is giving people money, not just that they're printing money, but they've got equity in their home. How does that impact? Because this has never happened before. Am I right, Sheila? I mean, I've never seen.
No, you're right. Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of it. Remember, I don't know when I bought my house in 2003 to 2004, 5. Remember, they went up 100,000 in 1 month.
But then but then it crashed.
Right.
Yeah,
then it crashed.
So that's people lost money.
Yeah.
But now over these past 10 years, 11 years, look at the money. If you bought a house in January, you already made $11,000 at the medium price.
Right. Well, the difference between a decade or 2 decades ago now, So, wow, it's been crazy. The difference between 2000 to 2007 and basically 2010 to now is the fact that the Federal Reserve has injected almost, let's call it 12 to 13 extra trillion dollars of, this fake money and liquidity into our system. Yeah. So, I mean, that trickles down. That money didn't disappear, right? It's not like they printed the money, the government issued it out to companies, all these bailouts, these corporations, people with federal unemployment benefits. That money circulates in our economy and then ends up landing in the hands of big institutions, investors, and corporations. And so, what do they do with that money? Well, they start buying assets, right? Things like the stock market, things like real estate, and that benefits people who already have assets because it drives prices up, right? But it creates definitely a greater wealth divide. And that's what we're seeing in like Southern California and actually all parts of California in real estate, right?
The rich and the poor.
Right. Exactly right. There's no middle ground anymore. I mean, that state is becoming a state of more renters than owners of property eventually, because I mean, in my hometown, Huntington Beach, you cannot buy anything like a rundown 1960s built home in Huntington Beach for under $1 million. I mean, they're going, new homes within the last 5-10 years at a minimum. If it's over 2,000 square feet, it's like $2 to $3 million now, right? Who's going to afford that? If I'm 28, right, coming out of college, even 4 years of experience, making $120,000 or $150,000 a year, I can't buy a $3 million home. I mean, Sheila, you can attest to that. I mean, the numbers don't work.
Right.
So, but the effect is that if they print more money, that money continues to circulate. And yes, people who own assets will benefit. And that's why right now, I mean, regardless of what you think, if the market's going down or high interest rates or, you want to own assets. Do not carry cash in an inflationary time like this, right? Because cash is an automatic loser. Cash is returning zero right now. Money market's returning, 0.1, 0.2% at banks. So you want to buy assets because if this continues, and unfortunately, I think what I'm also seeing in that report that you just showed, Sheila, is that when they start raising rates, the recession continues, eventually happens. I'm willing to think that Jerome Powell right now and Janet Yellen, right, and head of the Treasury, Janet Yellen is very accommodative. She's been, she proposed in one of her white papers when she was right before she became the federal chairman of the Federal Reserve that the Federal Reserve should print money and buy stocks, expand their balance sheet to buy stocks to intervene during major market crashes and economic downturns. So we could have a very accommodating, monetary policy for a very long time if those players are still at the head, because I mean, the minute like the economy is going to hit, they're going to print more money. And they've done that like historically now for the last almost decade and a half since the Obama administration coming out of the financial crisis. And I was sharing this with Ruth last week. And the reason why they're comfortable doing that is the rest of the world is running on a fiat currency central banking system, just like the US is. We just have to be we just happen to be the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry basket right now. Our federal balance sheet is still fairly low as a percentage of our economic growth number, our GDP number, compared to our trade partners. And that's why even though we've printed all this money across the last 15 years, our currency has actually stayed stable compared to the rest of the world. And in fact, in some cases have strengthened against the rest of the world, because the rest of the world's doing what we're doing, but their economic growth engine is much smaller than ours. And so it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, a lot of smart people, those are my theories, my simpleton, kind of observations of what's happening. But I have a feeling, I disagree with Habib, but he may be right more, but I don't think rates are going down this year in the last half. I think rates will continue to rise. The Fed's going to overreact at some point here. And we may see them, raise rates 4 times possibly by the end of the year. And then maybe in the second half of 2023, when they start to see things start to falter, they may stop, or they may expand their balance sheet, or they may even lower rates, right? If they see a recession heading down that time, because we're in a peculiar time right now in our country. You're right. The geopolitical environment is is weird in our country right now. I don't ever have never felt such a great divide in a distinction between Democrats and Republicans, so much so in history. They've always been able to come together in the middle somewhere, right? It doesn't seem like that's happening here, and because of that dynamic, and midterms are this year, right? That's why Jerome Powell's going to tread lightly. They don't want a recession to be this year. And recession this year is nowhere in sight. There's just too much liquidity and money out there. Even if the Fed raises rates, up to, the Windows rate to 2% and bond yields go up to 4% and mortgage rates go up to 4.5%, 5%. There's too much money still. Activity will still happen. But at some point, there will be a precipice. But the 2024 elections are right around the corner as well. And so that might, slow down things a little bit. No one wants, us to be in the middle part of recession. No party, especially the party in power, wants the country to be in a poor position because they get voted out. Right. So it'll be interesting to see. My guess here is that we still have some good times for probably 2-3 years, where as far as the economy runs strong. I think inflation is going to still, regardless of how much they raise rates, it's going to be right around this fake 7% that they tell us, 7.5%, for probably another 12 to 18 months before it starts to flatten out, and then with interest rates rising, go down. And they're going to watch carefully how it's going to affect the economy recession, because I think they've learned their lessons from that chart. Every time they've over raised rates, recession happens. Yeah. And I think all they need to do is just let the natural business cycle happen and stop printing money and let people, so.
Yeah. There's another dynamic going on. I've been studying the crypto world, and the first house was purchased through blockchain with Bitcoin this past several months, and raises a lot of interesting issues. A lot of people are learning more and more about Bitcoin in the crypto world, and there's a site called Propy, PROPY.com. And that is where this transaction occurred on that platform. So a lot of things, and there's Bitcoin and there's Ethereum. And Ethereum is setting its platform up to be able to easily transact real estate. So it's going to be an interest. That's going to, I think, play into this somehow. I have no idea how. But I'm working on it. I'm working on learning about it. Yeah,
no doubt. And it's crazy, is that, and that may be a different dynamic that continues to drive prices of assets as well. Because the funny thing about these cryptocurrencies is it is an imaginary value, right? That is set by the demand and supply of that coin, purely by the supply and demand of that coin. It's all speculation, right? And as you know, that's why right now Bitcoin's 50% lower than it was 5 months ago. So it'll be interesting, because at some point, I don't know. I mean, if the government intervenes here, overnight, all these people holding Bitcoin are going to be very upset.
But the government now has Bitcoin. it just sees a couple $1 billion of Bitcoin assets.
My gut feeling. I think Bitcoin's gonna survive. Ethereum's gonna survive. This is more like, this feeling I have about cryptocurrency is more like what we saw during the .com bubble, right? Where everybody was just investing in any company that had a .com at the end of it, and just throwing money at it, not understanding what they did. But the hype was so big, and eventually, at one point or another, it all comes crumbling down, because people start to realize it's built on a foundation of hay and not brick or mortar here. I don't know how people are buying digital pictures of monkeys with different expressions for $50,000 to $100,000 in this NFT world, right?
Right.
I know that's happening, but people need to ask, why is it happening? And is this sustainable? Right? And is it sustainable to the masses?
Tom Ferry said that he believes that you're going to see a house as an NFT.
Yeah, man. I think
that. And that's real estate. That's brick and mortar.
Right. So I don't know.
It's complicated to me.
It is super complicated.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, Barry's forecast, even if I presented this last week, but I remember even if the builders were to build houses for everybody that wanted a house right now, we'd still be behind.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's just
there's
so
a
many
backlog of 7 million buyers.
Mhm.
No, yeah. There's a book I forgot. It's called The Big Wave, and I forgot the author, and I can't find the book anywhere. But he's talking about over the next 20, 30 years, we've entered the 2008 financial crisis and the dot-com bubble during that recessionary time was the bottom of a trough of a time period where the market, the economy and the worldwide economy was heading downwards. And now we're just entering what we call the next kind of wave up. Because if you look at everything that's happening in the population kind of shift and trends of our country, I mean, the millennial generation, which is bigger than the baby boomers, right? They're going to be coming into a lot of money, not only because their age maturity is around 35, 40 in the next 5 to 10 years, but also they're going to be receiving a massive amount of wealth, right? Over 50% of wealth is controlled by baby boomers right now.
Exactly.
Right.
Mhm.
So over the next decade and a half, and if and they benefited greatly from this, money printing inflationary time. Real inflation is really, I mean, the scary inflation is happening in assets, not in goods and our gas prices have gone up 10, 20%. That's great. But if you look at how much real estate's gone up, just like in the last 10 years here. I mean, it's been incredible, right? It's because that's where that's where the excessive extra money is flowing through, is these asset prices and the stock market.
Yes.
And that will continue to be so. And then we're going to have more spending here when the baby boomers finally start having kids in their, late 30s and 40s now.
Right.
It's so easy. And I was looking for the slide real quick. And if I would have thought about it, I would have sent it to you sooner. Housing booms follow birth rates.
Correct.
Of course.
It's like every 30 years, and housing declines follow decline in birth rates too. I mean, it's so simple. If we would just follow that, we would be able to forecast. That's basically that's the easiest way to forecast a housing supply, housing demand and housing lack of demand.
The only thing that has happened now that isn't historical is that there's 97,000 centurions in the United States. People are living longer. So that may have an impact as well on what we're saying. There's history being made, just like historically low interest rates. There's historically high amounts of people that are living beyond 100. Just a lot of things here that are we can't look at history and see them. So I think that's exciting in a way.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and so as a business person, both in real estate and in the mortgage world and in finances, we just got to look at what's happening, accept what's happening, and then navigate through and how to take advantage of the opportunity. Because I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity still in the next couple of years, but even beyond that, we will eventually, depending on what the Federal Reserve does. My actually slight instinct is that I think the Federal Reserve and the current, monetary system that we're in will intervene at some point. They're not going to allow us to go through another financial crisis in a long time, right? Where all asset prices and liquidity just dries up like nothing and crashes. I mean, if you're waiting for a 2008 opportunity in real estate, you are going to be waiting a very long time. It might not be even in my lifetime.
Buy real estate and wait. Don't wait to buy real estate.
Exactly right. And with the flux of California is coming in here, buying things up with cash. I mean, they're doing to Southern Nevada, to Texas, to Florida, to Idaho. I mean, they're pricing first-time home buyers out of the market right now. And so if you have any opportunity to buy a house, do not wait, right? Maybe not buy your ideal house right now, right? You can always move up, right? Just grab your piece of an asset here that's going to continue to rise over time, and then wait. And then you can always rent it out if you don't want it anymore, because rents are on the rise as well. And right now, I think rentals are over on average, probably over the price of the average loan amount and payment each month, especially still here in Nevada. So, I mean.
Yeah, I met with the client yesterday who I've done 3 loans for, and he's preparing to purchase another investment property. And he was mentioning his mom has a portfolio of over 40 homes, and she is adjusting her rents right now. And people they're not able to pay it. I mean, they're going up. Like from 1,600, she was letting them pay for 2 or 3 years ago. The current rents for that same property is $2,200 a month now. It's
Yeah.
so buy.
Yes. Yeah, because then you can control, right? You lock in
Right.
your payment for 30 years. So there's the secret to inflationary times, right? You want to lock in debt payments. You want to own as many assets as possible and lock in fixed payments for as long as possible when interest rates are rising and inflation is rising. Because with rents, it's going to rise. You have no control as a renter, so whereas you own, you can.
That's
so
true.
Good stuff. So Sheila, any last words? Any final thoughts for the guests?
Final thoughts, just like what I've been saying all along through this presentation, is if you're thinking of renting, you really do yourself a favor. Real estate is still the #1 wealth growth for you during your lifetime. Find out what you can qualify first before you resort to renting. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, give us a call. Give Ruthie a call for your real estate needs. Give Sheila Merill a call, the lending lady, to find out what you qualify for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sheila, thank you so much for coming on today. Ruth, what is happening in training this week?
Well, I'm going to have to hide you down here, Sheila. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to hide you too.
Sure.
Hang on. All right. So we have a new platform, and I'm going to navigate over here. We have a new platform on bee.vegas. And what we have found is people, now that you need 36 hours of training, that they want to sign up for classes all ahead of time. So I'm going to scroll down here and show you the new platform that we've developed. You can put your payment information in one time, and then you can go and you can sign up for as many classes as you need, all on one page, all at one time. So that's something new, and people are absolutely loving it. And we have a class coming up. Let me come back here. We have a class coming up on the 3rd, March the 3rd. Here we go. March the 3rd, it's contracts, and it's writing and presenting the purchase contract and winning. And it's 10 to 1. It's a new class that Jimmy and I put together. So join us on, I think the 3rd is Thursday, Max? Thursday? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
3rd is Thursday.
Thursday, 10 to 1. And you get a free lunch. And go and look at our calendar, and you will see, all the classes are on the calendar. We've got a class this coming week. We've got 2 the next week, and then 1 the 3rd week. And then Kane is going on vacation. And so we're going to have a week there where we don't have any classes. And then we have the risk reduction the last week. So anyway, lots of things going on always. We had a great year so far. We have always over 30 students participating. They love our platform. They love our classes, and everybody's happy. And I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of stuff going on. Get educated, become more and more professional. Your industry is rapidly changing here, and the ones that have the most knowledge can present themselves in the most professional manner. Will win at this game and gobble up all the opportunity that's out there here. So thank you, Sheila Merill, for being on today. And we tune in to Monday.
Yes.
At 9 a.m. And we'll
I'll be here on Monday.
Weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Yes, thank you, Sheila, so much. Your presentation was awesome.
Thank you.
And Max, you're the best moderator. So
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Ruth.
Well, you're so knowledgeable about so many things, right, Sheila?
Exactly, you are.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday. We love you.